fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice.
Greetings world. We are Anon DK. Today we continue the Bloodlines, with the families, now that we are almost caught up to current day in the historical timeline. We have learned a bit about the Onassis family already, but let's look closer. Aristotle Socrates Onassis, also known as Aristotle is Socrates, was born January 20th, 1906 in Smyrna, Greece, now Turkey, and moved to Buenos Aires, France, and Greece. If you take a look at him, it is clear to see he was, as they say, top-notch. We will note a few things. We have already shown the link of Onassis to the Mafia and traced them back to its creation by Mazzini in Italy. He, being the new godfather, was deeply involved in opium trade through the Golden Triangle. Aristotle Socrates Onassis had married widow Jackie Kennedy. Jackie Bouvier Kennedy Onassis' father was member of a club which mirrored the Order of the Garter. Her mother was Senator Thomas Gore's daughter. Needless to say, she was well connected before her marriage. Aristotle Onassis died in 1975. Aristotle's son and heir, Alexander, died in a plane crash, suddenly, 2 years before Aristotle died. His daughter was found dead in a bathtub a few years later, and his illegitimate son, whom he had with his mistress, Anna Maria Sofia Cecilia Kalageropoulou Callas, who was also dead on the day of his birth, March 30th, 1960. Today we see Onassis' granddaughter Athena Onassis de Miranda divorced from husband Olympian Alvaro Doda de Miranda Eto. Athena is the only child of Cristina Onassis and is a professional equestrian like her ex-husband. She was 3 years old when her mother died and was raised by her father Terry Russell. Though the young billionaire claims that she would burn all of the money if she could, obviously she has done little to try. It would be encouraging if she did decide to break free of it. About this time, U.S. State Department issued a plan to disarm all nations and arm the United Nations. Document number 7277 is entitled Freedom from War, the Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. It details a 3-stage plan. They like things in threes. The final stage, in which no state would have the military power to challenge the progressively strengthened UN peace force. Once Joseph died, JFK and Bobby were finally free to attack the elite. They arrested Wally Bird, who owned the Air Thailand, which was the line used for shipping Onassis opium under CIA's Air Opium program. They arrested Mafia man Jimmy Hoffa, and took the $73 million in Howard Hughes' fake land loans, deposited them with SF Bank of America, which declared them forgeries, thus proving the plot Hughes was stuck in. You see, in March 1957, a small group had come up with a very detailed plan on how to acquire their own airline in order to smuggle even more opium around the world. Unable to use commercial airlines in USA any longer, they noticed Howard Hughes. His stonewall for the commercial control over his airline made him the perfect target. The plan fell together and Aristotle Onassis was the executor. He had Howard Hughes kidnapped, as we touched on before, from his bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel, using Hughes' own men. Hughes was shot full of heroin for 30 days and later drugged to a cell on Onassis Island, Scarpio, which is owned by Athena now. Onassis now had more power in the US with the Hughes empire. He already controlled his puppet Nixon, and other Hughes-purchased politicians. Hughes double-played him out for years. When JFK found out about all that was going on, once his brother had died, he rose up. Onassis put up an elite team of assassins to murder Castro since JFK wasn't going with the plan. JFK and Bobby set up a justice team and arrested the assassins. Onassis was beyond enraged, as you can imagine, and created the CIA's Group of 40, which is a group of highly trained assassins specifically used for high-profile hits and coups. JFK's assassination was going to take place as a triple execution, together with Godin's new brother and chief advisor to President Godin Diem in Vietnam. Diem and New were whacked as scheduled. This is not the only thing going on with JFK that would have gotten him murdered. If one plot didn't work, the next wave would come. He was a marked man. Another person who found out about the earlier ordeal between Joseph Kennedy and Onassis was Senator S.K. Fowler. He planned a speech on the Senate floor exposing the mafia operations and the members, Onassis, Kennedy, Eugene Meyer, Lasky, Roosevelt, etc. He ate a piece of apple pie laced with sodium morphate, a poison, and had a heart attack on the Senate floor. There is no such thing as freedom of speech. A side note, Giuseppe Mazzini, born June 22, 1805 in Genoa, Italy, is a name well associated with the Illuminati and Freemasons as well as Italian patriotism. He lived in Samana for a while and was highly influenced by Sabbatai Zavai's Kabbalist Jesuit views, which had a deep impact on that area in 1600. Onassis shares these views as one would expect from fellow Jesuits. Mazzini and Albert Pike discussed the bringing about of World War III and the New World Order, which they claimed would be under Luciferian dictatorship. Mazzini traveled up through France to England, never staying with someone without high rank and station in society. Don't you see how it is all the same? Politicians, actors, mafia all working together, all the same Luciferian deceivers. Aristotle's grandfather was Socrates Herolampus Onassis, born 1850s Greece, married Gethsemeda Moutalaski. Socrates Onassis was from a town called Moutalaski, and after a bit of digging we find his brother, Pavlos I Pavlides. His first son was crushed to death as a small child and his second was named Yakovos, after Pavlos' grandfather. So, we see the name change here. Perhaps why Onassis has been so difficult for others to find. Anyhow, Yakovos, also known as Hakabus, Pavlos' father, was an elder, meaning also shepherd and priest, at the Greek Evangelical Church of Moutulaski. The name Yakovos is also very prominent in the family, like Socrates. Socrates, one of the celebrated and famous philosophers who lived in the same area centuries before. As we know, they use names of their relatives and places their bloodline has lived in. There is still a concentrated Ashkenazi influence in areas of Greece, like Thessaloniki, the mother of Israel. The Shurpherdim, a sect of Jesuit, have always run in this bloodline as well as the area. This gets us back to the 1700. However, our limited knowledge of Greek and the strict measures held on Sicilian genealogy sites, we must stop here for now. Though we have already traced them back to the tribe as the rest of the families. We do know they stay in that area, and we have seen the bloodlines history in previous chapters. If we simply follow the smell of poppies and philosophers, we can see evidence of them in 3400 BC when opium was cultivated in Southwest Asia. The Sumerians called it as hulgil, which means joy plant. Its cultivation spread along the Silk Road, the routes from the Mediterranean, Turkey, Greece, Asia and finally to China. Since we are on the opium side of things, let's look into the Li family. We can find the Li lineage among leaders throughout Asia even today. Of course, we know already that the Naphtali tribe was in the area ages ago, and as branches have broken off across the world, there is no difference here. We saw the line through Attila to Li Peng's daughter, China's power queen, Li Zhaolin, who holds the Chinese side of the bloodline. June 4, 1989, a massacre is caused by a power struggle between Li Peng and Zhou Ziyang. Protesters were in the streets, on hunger strikes in order to create a communist party without corruption that would allow freedom of press and freedom of speech. The strikes went on in 400 cities, and as planned, martial law was imposed, and 300,000 troops were sent to one city alone under Li Peng's orders. Li had a multitude of troops with assault rifles and tanks open fire on unarmed civilians trying to block the military advance for the false flag event. The exact number of those killed is unknown as usual, except that it is above 10,000 innocent citizens. Still, we call his descendant Queen Li Ka-shing in Hong Kong, the gateway of opium trade, has a vast empire, which is easy to find in oil and utilities. The Li lineage has also created secret, secure banks strictly for opium trades within the elite. Li Ka-shing, Asia's richest man at $31.9 billion in 2014, has two sons, Victor and Richard, who are soon to take over the empire. Lee Kuo Yew, who graduated from Cambridge with elite connections and of course member of various clubs, became dictator of Singapore and ruled for decades. Them being so spread out makes our job a bit easier, as we can clearly see a bigger object moving through history than a small one. The Li bloodline is very easily followed back. Li Sungzhen around 1891 went to the Wangzi Military Elementary School. In 1925 Li and two allies beat the other minor warlords and won control of Wangzi province. Member of the KMT, and the Illuminati sect in China, we can see many in the Li line in similar positions, selling opium, organizing gambling, taxing prostitution, running the White Dragon Society, and legal businesses, as well as printing their own money on crude duplicating machines. They even have a river. The Li River had a canal created around 200 BC. The Ling Canal now joins the Ziyang and Li Rivers, opening passage from Xi'an, Guizhou and Shanghai. Around 1980s we see the Lin Biao group created by supporters of the elites Confucius and his protege Lin Biao. Lin Biao was against legalists in his time. The group included Chen Boda, Huang Yonsheg, Wu Fanxian, Li Tuob, Qiu Huizuo, and Jiang Tenjiu. There are many elite-run groups, gangs, clubs, organizations, who included Li's among their members. Li Di was the chief instructor of the Kagda model, which was used widely as seen in Yunnan anti-Japanese military and political college, exalted as a model of proletarian education in the GPCR. Although it claimed to be self-supporting, making the students provide their own food and supplies, which they did through peasant labor. Li Di led this until he returned to Moscow in spring of 1934 and immediately assigned to Spain as chief Soviet advisor, under the name General Kleber. He was executed in 1938. There were no leaders in the Red Army created in that time. This technique was also used by Mao to attack China's elitist universities. Remember, the elite play both sides. Always. Both sides. Why? Not so they don't lose. It's not a competition, though they are greedy and corrupted. They do not compete, rather merely complete agendas and follow the plan. They only play the game of control and destruction on you in order to deceive you and rob you of your soul. Quotes like that of Jiang Qing, who said, quote, "Everything I did, Mao told me to do. I was his dog, what he said to bite, I bit." End quote. Which proves the sad fact that people think they are unable to change their own situation or that of those in power. Sounds like what we heard from the Nuremberg trials about Hitler. Both were puppet kings of the elite and were used to puppet others. Warrants were placed on a group of men discovered to be plotting to kill Mao. Mao's personal physician was of the Li family as well. Of the men who escaped China, never to be arrested, was Li Lu. One family takes these pawns and one family takes others, and they simply play it out. They have no ability to create. They can only distort and deceive the people to manipulate the outcome for whatever they wish. Remember that. They have no real power. That is what we must all know. Li Baodong was born April 1955 in Beijing, China. He was a Chinese diplomat, ambassador to Zambia, and permanent representative to the United Nations. Further back, in 1875, Li Chu from Ajig, Jiangsu, China, was the military and civil governor of Jiangxi and military governor of Jiangsu. He and 3 others remained neutral in the Civil War of 1910s. He suddenly died in 1920. We can see their name changes after the Tang dynasty. The Li family blood most likely flows through all dynasties and rulers in Asia, as we have seen elsewhere through history, and especially since China has been so segregated from the world. In 618, the Li family under the Tang dynasty seized power, creating the decline and collapse of the Sui Empire. The Tang dynasty lasted until the 900s. During this dynasty, Li Bei arose and became one of China's most famous poets. The emperor and founder of the Tang dynasty was Li Yuan. His daughter Princess Pai Gyag was said to be equally as militant as her father, having her own troops and military under her command, which was notable in those days. In 198 AD, Li Ju, also known as Ziran, died. He was general of chariots and cavalry, director of retainers, Marquis of Kaiyang, and Grand Marshal, in his lifetime. By the end of his blood-soaked legacy, he was betrayed by his right-hand man and butchered along with his entire clan. We can follow the Lis through history, through the societies and clubs created by Illuminati, straight back to the Mongols, leading to Pannonia and Aftali. The genealogy, census and other reports are easy to find in certain areas and almost impossible in others if you don't know the language. Today we see Li, who is president and chairman of Shenzhen Tech Dow Pharmaceutical and chairman and non-independent director of Shenzhen Heparlink Pharmaceutical, supplying the world with heparisodium, a blood thinner. He is also surprisingly, executive director of Shenzhen Lucky Kind Technology and Flystone Technology. He also finds time to be the director of Shenzhen Top Sun Biotechnology. This amazing transformation happened to a Li who started out working in a meat processing plant, but thanks to his Bachelor of Arts degree from Sichuan University, he finds himself with a net worth of $1.58 billion. Once again giving you the elite's fantasy called the American Dream. If you believe it's true, it's because you're sleeping. China's history is so interesting. If you are an American and have not been taught anything about them, besides to still consider it Red China, then take the time, even a couple hours, read a book or watch a real documentary about the history. It is simply fascinating, but we must leave that for you to find. Join us next time. Expect more.